Well, I walked towards the old town hall with a group of my mates by my side. Well, to join up the Ulster division. Well, they knew I was young, but I lied. But arriving in Europe, well, it hit me the reality of what I would do. I would clamor all the trench ladder when the captain his whistle he blew. Well, tonight as I lie in my dugout, well, I'm cold and encased in the mud. Well, I long to be with you, my darling. Well, to hold you and to warm up my blood. We would walk hand in hand through old Belfast, through the streets that I love, Sandy Road. But I know that this will never happen, for tomorrow to the battle I'll go. Yes, remember I'll always will love you. Tell my mom, my dad just the same. Well, I'm afraid like the lads here beside me, London, France, I will surely remain. Well, I'll fight and I'll die for old Ulster, for the England and the red, white and blue. Don't disturb me, lads, I am writing to my girl back in Belfast, so true. Well, she broke her wee heart when I left her. Well, my Ulster, I'll do this for you. So I bid you good night now, my darling, for it's dark and I can't seem to write. Yes, remember the Ulster division, for the Ulster will always be right. Yes, remember the Ulster division, oh, the Ulster will always be right.
Well, hello and welcome to another Restore Live. Restore Live going out on a Wednesday evening at 8:30, and we're going live to the YouTube channel, also to the channel on Twitter. Now, what I would like to ask people to do would be that if you're on YouTube, if you would take that link and if you could share it across the social media platforms. Also on Twitter, if you would like to perhaps click on our link and to retweet the stream that we're doing. Now, what is it that we're here to speak about this evening? We're here to speak about it's this so-called Windsor framework deal is what they call it. And well, okay, there's been a lot of talk about it in the past few days, and really what concerns me personally and other people that we work with here at Restore UK, what concerns us collectively is that, well, is this a case of insanity politicized? I'll say that again, insanity politicized. Now, what do I mean when I say that? What was it that I think it's Einstein that says that if you continue to do the same thing over and over and over again, and if you expect a different outcome, well, that is the definition, the real definition of insanity. So we're calling what it is that we're talking about right now insanity politicized. Now, I can elaborate on what I mean when I say that. Well, let's look right back into 1985. 1985, the Anglo-Irish Agreement going forward. Now, I'm not going to recite all those moments within unionism, British unionism here in Northern Ireland, in where that what we have seen is that we've seen, well, successive conservative governments sell us out, do the wrong thing, do in some cases what they think is the right thing, but however, it turns out to be the wrong thing. And the problem with a lot of the things that they've done to date is that they don't actually consult with the right people within unionism. They may get themselves some MPs in Parliament from the Ulster Unionists, from the DUP, successive unionist parties going forward. You know, those that we elect to serve and protect us, those that we like to think that they should be our leaders. But it turns out that whenever they get to Westminster, well, goodness knows what happens, but they seem to adopt someone else's brain, as if the people in Northern Ireland don't even matter. And what our concerns is that these people are participating in the insanity politicized project, in where they're about to do the same thing yet again. And well, I think that they expect a different outcome. What is it they're about to do? I believe that the DUP are minded to go with this Windsor framework deal, this Brexit stop, this backstop deal, which is repackaged, this Boris Johnson's oven-ready protocol deal. Well, oven-ready because it came from the backstop deal and it was repackaged, and now it's being repackaged again, but by now it has been overcooked. And Rishi Sunak, he ensured that it was completely overcooked yesterday. Who governs trade law and dictates trading arrangements in Northern Ireland? Now, that is a real question to unionists here in Northern Ireland, not just unionists, but to nationalists also. Who governs trade law and dictates trading arrangements in Northern Ireland? Let's, for a moment, let's discuss what it is that we know about our trade law, what it is that we know about the protocol deal, what it is that we've witnessed that has happened ever since that the protocol has came into being at the end of, 2020, coming 2021, the end of the year, in came the protocol. Start of 2021, the start of 2022, that's 1 year. 2023, that's 2 years, 2 years and counting. The protocol is still here. The protocol, well, they say that it's going to be replaced with the Windsor framework, which is only a framework, which is not law, which is not legislation, which isn't a deal, which has been agreed in principle with the British government and, well, the European Union. It has got the thumbs up from, well, seemingly King Charles. But you see, what do we know about the protocol? What has the protocol visited upon unionists here in Northern Ireland? What has it done with our trade? What has it done with our trading arrangements? What has it shown us? Has it shown us that the British government are in control of trade here in Northern Ireland? Or has it shown us that, well, the EU is in control of our trading circumstances, our trading arrangements here in Northern Ireland? Let's look at the border for a moment. The so-called sea border. It consists of ports in Northern Ireland, in Larne, in Belfast, and in Warrenpoint. Hauliers will tell you that, well, the paperwork that is involved to bring goods across that sea border, it's colossal. It's hassle, it's time consuming. But yet Northern Ireland is an internal part, an integral part of the United Kingdom. We learnt through the Supreme Court that the trading arrangements as laid out in Article 6, the Act of the Union, which permitted for and provided for, well, unfettered access right around the United Kingdom, which provided for that citizens in all parts of the United Kingdom, whether that be England, Scotland, Wales, and in Northern Ireland, well, they should be on an equal footing. So that Article 6 is a very, very important article to British Unionists, because it provides for the trading circumstances right around the United Kingdom. And should the British government, say, for example, do a trade deal with someone, should they perhaps, lower taxation? Should they do whatever it is that they can do now that they are in a state of Brexit in England, Scotland, and Wales? Well, to be on an equal footing means that we have the same circumstances as the people in England, Scotland, and Wales. We in Northern Ireland should be, well, as I say, on an equal footing. But what has that protocol actually done? And which begs the question, and I'll say it again, who is it that governs trade law and dictates trading arrangements in Northern Ireland? Let me play you a short video clip. And whenever we play this clip, I would like to come back and we'll talk some more.
Will have the final say on EU law and single market issues.
Do you believe the Unionists will accept different treatment? And can you point to how, for instance, the European Court of Justice will have jurisdiction in Northern Ireland?
The agreements that we've reached today, there is further democratic accountability of that role of EU law with the new Stormont break, which provides a very powerful mechanism for the Stormont institution to use when it has concerns.
So the ECJ will have the final say on EU law and single market issues.
Now, what you just heard there was that there was a press conference just a few days ago with Ursula von der Leyen, I'm not too sure how to say that, but there was a press conference between Ursula here and Rishi Sunak, in where that they were being asked some questions. Now, we're going to play that again, but this time what we're going to do is that I'm going to stay on the side here and we're going to stop it at the relevant points within this little short video clip. And we're going to really drill into what it was that was being said in this press conference just a few days ago. So here we go.
So the ECJ will have the final say on EU law and single market issues.
So the ECJ, the European Court of Justice, will have the final say on EU law and in the EU single market. Now, we've learned through some court cases, Edwin Poots, the Minister for Agriculture and it's Rural Development, I think it is. But what we learned was that Edwin Poots was under obligation to build some border posts. And Edwin Poots, well, he was challenged, I think, by judicial review. Is that right? And they went to court, and they came up with, Edwin Poots had said, well, it's not right that we should be operating these checks in Larne and Belfast and in Warrenpoint. And in that court case, well, it came across, it was exposed that the British government, the government solicitors, they were arguing, the legal team, that the point of entry in the Irish Sea, in the North Channel, between England, Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland, should be viewed as the entry point into the EU single market. Now we know that has been through a court, that has been tried, that has been tested, and that has been deliberated upon by judges. And now that we know that the point of entry into the EU single market is actually at Larne, Belfast and Warrenpoint in the Irish Sea, it's slap bang in the middle of the United Kingdom. Well, we have to conclude that what has happened here is that there is an EU-inspired, dictated, regulatory and customs border, and as I say, slap bang in the middle of the United Kingdom. So what was argued successfully in that court case was that we in Northern Ireland are now part of the EU single market. Now, let's listen to Ursula one more time.
So the ECJ will have the final say on EU law and single market issues?
Do you believe?
So the ECJ will have the final say on EU law and single market issues. So the EU, the ECJ, the European Court of Justice, will have the final say on trade, any trade here in Northern Ireland, because remember, Northern Ireland is now being treated as the EU single market and not the UK internal market. Now, bank that. Think about what I'm saying here, and we're going to proceed. So now let's listen to Rishi.
The Unionists will accept different treatment, and can you point to how, for instance, the European Court of Justice will have jurisdiction in Northern Ireland?
The agreements that we've reached today, there is further democratic accountability of that role of EU law with the new Stormont break, which perhaps...
Now, Rishi was being asked, well, let's just listen to it again so that we can be crystal clear on what it is that's happening before your very eyes. I'm just taking it back. Here we go.
Single market issues?
Do you believe the Unionists will accept different treatment, and can you point to how, for instance, the European Court of Justice will have jurisdiction in Northern Ireland?
So Rishi's being asked how that the European Court of Justice will be having jurisdiction here in Northern Ireland. And the best that Rishi can come up with is to say, well, let's listen to what he says.
The agreements that we've reached today, there is further democratic accountability of that role of EU law with the new Stormont break, which perhaps...
So Rishi is saying that well, there's now going to be a Stormont break. Where the people of Northern Ireland, and this was in the DUP7 tests, the people in Northern Ireland are now going to have a democratic say on EU single market law here in Northern Ireland. And the best thing that they could come up with was this thing called the Stormont break. Now let me put this here onto your screen, and I'll talk about it as I go. So the Stormont break, as you see at the top, now somebody spelled this wrong. I just got this off the internet, and this is a very, very good diagram. But the Stormont break, as you see it here, is, look at the arrow. So if the Stormont break is applied, this is the safeguards that Rishi thinks is going to be suitable for the people of Northern Ireland to really counter EU jurisdiction here in Northern Ireland, single market law within Northern Ireland, and well, let's just look and see how this works. So Stormont break, the arrow then means that if somebody from within the Northern Ireland Assembly, and there has to be 30 people, if two parties, this is the specification, if two parties get together and if they can muster 30 people against any oncoming, now I'm going to say this, new quote unquote EU directives or laws that are coming down our line. let's say the DUP decide, we don't like that, we don't want that, we can't have that. Our voters, this is not consistent with being a unionist. This is all wrong. We want to stop this. So the DUP has what? Is it 25 MLAs in the Assembly? So, okay, so there's an independent, which is Alex Easton, within the Assembly also. There's another person who calls themselves an independent, and she's a unionist, Claire Sugden. Now, which is questionable as to why Claire Sugden would actually vote against any EU-inspired new directives or laws which is coming down our line. There's the Ulster Unionist Party. And, and when we look at these numbers, again, it is very, very questionable as to whether the Ulster Unionist Party would vote against any EU-inspired regulations coming down our line or directives. It is very, very questionable as to whether or not that the Ulster Unionist Party would actually vote against them. So you see, they've made the entry point to raise a petition of concern, a Stormont break, quote unquote, effectively. They've made it almost impossible for unionists to even raise this, should they not like an EU regulation which is coming down our line. And these things happen every day, every month, every week, every year. So if unionists, if the bar is set so high and unionists can't actually stop these laws, and let's say that they manage to get their 30 people and they voted to stop one of these EU laws, and Rishi is actually selling this on the basis that this is based upon a thing called petition of concern, which was contained within the triple lock mechanism, which was contained within the Northern Ireland Act 1998, which the British government have changed. And we're not going to get into that right now. We just want to talk about this deal. We want to present this deal in a way that people can understand. Is this deal for you? Is this deal for us? Is this deal conducive to ensuring that the unionists in Northern Ireland would be treated in a fair and balanced way? And I'm going to ask you to make your own determination once that you've watched this. So we're going back again to this break. So we've established that 30 people need to raise this petition of concern, which applies the Stormont break. Now, what happens? Well, under the old system, well, they could have stopped it because you would have needed cross-community buy-in from within the Northern Ireland Assembly. But no, this doesn't work that way. If they manage to get a Stormont break applied, they are saying that this break only applies if there's extreme circumstances. So who defines what an extreme circumstance is, or what a circumstances that justifies putting this break on? So it now goes to the British government. I think there's a consultation in between to see can they smooth things out before the break and to release the break again. But then it goes to the British government. So the British government have the power to either say, well, yes, we agree that this is the wrong EU directive or regulation that is coming down our road, so therefore we can stop this. But if the British government then, so Stormont break, it's referred to Her Majesty's government, right? It goes on to Her Majesty government, and if they sort of say that we don't like that regulation, then what happens is that you heard Ursula von der Leyen there. It then goes on to the EU, and what she's saying, now remember what we talked about at the start, that Northern Ireland is now seen as EU territory, the EU single market. And Ursula von der Leyen was quite specific when she said that, well, EU regulations apply in Northern Ireland, and the EU ECJ, the European Court of Justice, will be the final arbiter and have the final say on any ruling. So if you look at that circle there, Stormont break refers to Her Majesty's government. Her Majesty's government then they have to refer, well, put it like this, if they say, no, 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 DUP and the 30 participants, you can't have that, well, then they can't have it. It's as simple as that. It didn't matter why they raised it, the concern about this law or not that's coming down your line. But if the British government then, let's say they say, yes, this needs to be stopped, then what happens is it then goes on to the EU to have the final ruling. So that's a very, very good diagram that we've seen on the internet, on Twitter. Bar that Stormont is spelled Stormont, and this is spelled actually Stormont. So whoever done that document, please put that right and make it available to or back onto Twitter again so that we can copy it, because it really is helpful for explaining what it is that's happening to people. So let's play on and let's try to understand some more. So we'll just take this back a wee here, and what we want to do is we want to listen to Rishi again to hear that what Rishi's best shot at trying to say that you're safe. People in Northern Ireland are safe. Don't worry. The people in Northern Ireland have a mechanism by which that they can stop any new EU laws coming down our line. Well, I'm going to say, and I'm going to say this quite explicitly, Rishi is talking absolute balderdash, complete and utter hogwash, and we'll explain as we go on. So let's play on with Rishi.
The Court of Justice will have jurisdiction in Northern Ireland.
The agreements that we've reached today, there is further democratic accountability of that role of EU law with the new Stormont break, which provides a very powerful mechanism for the Stormont institution to use when it has concerns.
So the ECJ will have the final say on EU law and single market issues.
Do you believe the Unionists will accept different treatment? And can you point to how, for instance, the European Court of Justice will have jurisdiction in Northern Ireland?
The agreements that we've reached today, there is further democratic accountability of that role of EU law with the new Stormont break, which provides a very powerful mechanism for the Stormont institution to use when it has concerns.
So the
Rishi's saying that we're going to supply a Stormont break. It's referred to, there's a bit of consultation, it's referred to the British government. If the British government decide, no, 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 you have to get that EU rule, well, you get it forced down your throat no matter whether you want it or not. So Stormont doesn't have control. The people of Northern Ireland does not have control through their political leaders. Unionism will most definitely not have control because it's all geared towards, actually, I'm going to say it in this way, the dice is loaded from within this so-called Stormont break. But here's the reality. Here is the reality that the EU actually, well, what do we call this stream? We call it who governs trade law and dictates trading arrangements in Northern Ireland. Now, ultimately, this is the case. And I say this without fear of contradiction, without fear of contradiction. The EU, who governs trade law and dictates trading arrangements in Northern Ireland, it's the EU. It's the EU. And if the EU do actually govern trade law, they tell us that we have to have regulatory customs checks, regulatory customs checks in Larne and Belfast and in Warrenpoint. They tell us that goods have to be checked coming to Northern Ireland. They tell us that this territory, Northern Ireland, part of the United Kingdom, is part of the EU single market. They tell us that anything coming to Northern Ireland from England, Scotland and Wales, they want the trading data. They want data supplied so that they know what is coming into Northern Ireland, part of the United Kingdom. They tell us that they want green lanes, they want red lanes, they want customs and regulatory border. They tell us in Northern Ireland as British Unionists that we have to be separated, albeit for trading purposes, from our largest market. That's England, Scotland and Wales. Who dictates trade law? Who governs trade law in Northern Ireland? I hope that you're getting this picture. Is this deal, is this Windsor framework, and it's only a framework at this point, but is this Windsor framework sellable for any unionist in Northern Ireland? Even more to the point, is it something that unionists in Northern Ireland can buy into? Should our leaders be accepting that the EU Court of Justice is the final arbiter on trade law within this part of the United Kingdom in Northern Ireland? Now, Rishi went on yesterday to try to sell this as the best of both worlds. It's a wonderful deal. You people are the only people in the world that have this, part of the EU and part of the UK single market, or the internal market, and part of the EU single market. Well, you see, what use is it if now Rishi and Ursula here yesterday, they couldn't even agree on screen yesterday, and this is before the deal is even done. It's only a framework, it's agreed in principle, and they couldn't agree because Rishi was saying that the people of Northern Ireland, they have a mechanism to stop the EU laws being forced into place, and Ursula is saying no, that's not what we agreed to. We agreed to the ECJ, the European Court of Justice, being the final arbiter and having the final say over trade law in Northern Ireland. So they couldn't even agree at the outset, but yet Rishi's telling you, Sunak oil salesman, or is that a snake oil salesman? He's trying to get you to buy into something, which is, well, I'm going to say what I said at the start. Is this insanity politicized? Is this a case of unionists being asked to do something that they've done time and time again, only to learn that what it results in is the lessening of Britishness, the lessening of their membership of the United Kingdom over and over and over again? How many times since 1985 have we been asked to buy into something only to learn? And let me give you another example. And this is a clear example that we only learned lately. So the principle of consent, that's how the Belfast Agreement was sold. Union is safe. The principle of consent really suggests, it guarantees Northern Ireland's place within the United Kingdom. It guarantees that there can't be constitutional change in Northern Ireland. It's a guarantee. That's what it is. But then we go to reach for that guarantee. We go to reach for that safeguard contained within Article 1 of the Northern Ireland Act 1998, that there can be no constitutional change in Northern Ireland without the consent of the people. Unionism didn't give their consent to this protocol, which has literally fettered the trade from England, Scotland and Wales to Northern Ireland, which has placed a barrier in the Irish Sea, which has inspired a regulatory and customs border, an EU regulatory and customs border, slap bang in the middle of the United Kingdom, separating us, destroying the Act of the Union, Article 6, in where that it says that there should be unfettered access, that any trading arrangements are for each and every citizen within this United Kingdom, that every citizen should be on an equal footing. But yet what we learned, that principle of consent, that mechanism that said that there couldn't be constitutional change, well, what we've learned is that, well, that wasn't worth the paper that it was written on. So Mr. Snake Oil Salesman will excuse us for not actually accepting this word, especially when he didn't even pass the first hurdle here. Now they're saying that Rishi actually overcooked things yesterday. Well, I'm going to say that he actually did. He really and truly overcooked his goose, because no unionist could buy into that. You see, this is a question of, well, there's really two questions. And I'm asking Unionists to listen to these two definitive questions that need to be answered, that need to be satisfied in order that we would accept anything in the future. And here's the two things. Who governs trade law? Who dictates trading arrangements in Northern Ireland? That's number one. Number two, are we on an equal footing with the people in England, Scotland and Wales? Because if we're not, this deal isn't any use to any unionist, anyone that would call themselves a unionist, anyone from right around the United Kingdom that would call themselves a unionist. And why do I say that? Well, let me explain even further. Today on my way home from work, I listened to the Radio Ulster. I hear an interview with Andrea Leadsom from the Conservative Party. Now, Andrea would have been a lady that I would have preferred that would have been put in place as opposed to Theresa May back in the day whenever David Cameron got Brexit done, or certainly overseeing the Brexit referendum, to which he lost, to which he defined to every single British unionist here in Northern Ireland. He said there would be one vote, and what the people decide, there'll be no renegotiation. If the people decide that they're leaving the EU, well, leave the EU we will. That's what he said. He done a runner once he lost the referendum. There was a Conservative Party leadership contest. Andrea Leadsom was one of the people that I would have said that probably would have been perfect to deliver Brexit. However, Theresa May ended up in place, and we've seen what Theresa May done. We've seen the backstop deal that Theresa May tried to do. The backstop, you know, the border in the Irish Sea that we were telling the DUP back then that this is what's going to happen. But they're saying, no, we know better. We know better. How many times have the DUP got this wrong? This seems like insanity politicized, where they're continuously asked to compromise. They compromise only to find out that they've done the wrong thing. So Andrea Leadsom today, she was being asked, well, hang on a minute, Andrea. You're promoting that Northern Ireland is getting this special deal, this, you know, in the EU, or in the EU single market and in the UK internal market. If it's such a good deal, why doesn't the rest of the United Kingdom take it? Well, she didn't answer, did she? What she said was, well, it puts Northern Ireland on a better position because businesses from England, Scotland and Wales can now go and set up in Northern Ireland. And let me explain why that is stupidiness personified, or on stilts, let's just say. Because as part of the EU single market, well, what you lose is you lose your unique selling point. You lose your competitive edge. Because the EU dictates that you can't be competitive against member states. You can't have a unique selling point. The rules of the free market actually don't apply within that single market. So we'll take no lectures from Andrea Leadsom when she tells us that Northern Ireland is getting the best of both worlds. Rishi Sunak, it's the most wonderful deal, and people are saying from all around the planet that they're going to come and they're going to set up here in Northern Ireland. Rishi, you know, do yourself a favour and stop making a fool out of yourself. Let's get back to reality here. Let's get back to real stuff in Northern Ireland. So, what do we know? And I'm going to say this again. Who governs trade and dictates trading arrangements in Northern Ireland? Well, the answer to that is, are you ready for it?
ECJ will have the final say on EU law and single market issues.
So the ECJ, the European Court of Justice, will have the final say within the European single market. Northern Ireland is in the European single market, and these snake oil salesmen, Sunak oil salesperson, which we seen yesterday, that's Rishi, he was trying to oversell this, to overhype this, to tell us that we have a wonderful situation here in Northern Ireland when we don't. If anyone's on my Twitter, go and have a look at what's written at the top of that Twitter in the bio. You know, the gap between quick fix and lasting solution is enormous. To bridge that gap is where ultimate success can be found. You know, for years involved in what it is that I do, I see quick fix being implemented and pushed into place in politics all the time. But quick fix only is a temporary fix. It's not a lasting solution. It isn't a solution that people can be satisfied with. And you know, there is ways of literally creating the circumstances whereby that you do get lasting solutions, that you can get buy-in from people. If you try hard enough, if you work long hours into the night, right through the night for weeks and months and years, talking to people, you know, explaining to people, well, we can't get everything what we want, but what we can do is that, well, we can arrive at what I call an equitable arrangement. An equitable arrangement which would suit the needs of people, not the wants of ideologies or extremism. I'll say that again. You can arrive at an equitable solution that satisfies the needs of people, not the wants of extremists. And that's what we have in politics today. We have diametrically opposed extremist ideologies fighting against each other. And you know, it's annoying to watch. It's more than annoying. You know, it's sometimes laughable that they would eat grass, they would do without food in order that their ideology would win. You know, take these people who are shouting for a united Ireland these days. It's now a new Ireland. And then when you look into Ireland, you can see that if you're Irish, if you want to fly your Irish flag, if you want to be respecting your nationality, your history, your heritage, your culture, if you want to be respecting all of that in Ireland right now, that's the Republic of Ireland, well, you're being told that you're far right, that you're fascist, that you're racist. What was it Micheál Martin said? He said that we will have nothing to do with the backward idea of sovereignty. That's the leader, or was the leader in Ireland. Well, Leo Varadkar's no better, nor is Simon Coveney and that conglomerate. Is Sinn Féin going to be any better? Let's say that Sinn Féin took over power in the Republic tomorrow. Well, what would happen there? What would happen there? There was a little song from Ireland. Sinn Féin are bloody Marxists. That's what the song says. A little Irishman sings that. Sinn Féin have sold their people out. The Irish government. Successive Irish governments have sold their people out. Micheál Martin, he wants nothing to do with the backward idea of sovereignty. Their proclamation. You know, that's the proclamation that they live by. That is their foundation. What they say is that they believe in that proclamation. The Irish government reads that proclamation out every Easter. Certainly an Irish soldier, a high-ranking member of the real IRA, the real Irish Republican Army. That's the state Irish Republican Army. Well, they read that out every year on Easter Sunday outside the GPO. And in that proclamation, it talks about the indefeasible right of the Irish people to be sovereign and to have ownership of their own land. Going back for years, the writers that inspired that proclamation, James Fitton Lowther being one, well, he talks about Ireland belonged to the people from the soil to the sky. I talk to people in Ireland every single day. And this is a message to the Sinn Féiners, to the nationalists, and to the people who would come to watch this. Are you sure that your leaders are doing the right thing? Are you sure that you're being led into this utopia called a new Ireland? Are you sure that you're going to be allowed to be Irish in this new utopia? Let me just explain something. Ireland has been given away a long time ago. Ireland is a vassal of the EU dictatorial Ponzi scheme and the undemocratic EU dictatorial Ponzi scheme at that. You're rule takers. Right now, you are being overburdened with uncontrolled, uncontrollable, unquantifiable, unidentifiable immigration. But yet you're being told that they're asylum seekers. You're being told that they're here because they're under threat in their own countries. And then we have the media, the NUJ specifically, the National Union of Journalism. We've looked at their guidelines. They've teamed up with the UN. And you're not actually allowed to talk about migrants at the minute. You're not allowed to talk about refugees. You're not allowed to talk about the overburdening of Irish society. And I just explain that to let you understand and to let everyone understand that we're all being played like well-tuned fiddles. We're all being played for fools by those that well, take Rishi Sunak yesterday telling us that this is a great deal, that, well, we've got the best of both worlds. Take Ursula von der Leyen saying, well, ECJ will have the power to force in regulation after regulation after regulation. They will have the power through Ireland with an open border policy to push, well, these so-called refugees up, these unidentifiable, unquantifiable, uncontrollable, this uncontrollable immigration into our country, taking charge of the democracy that we have, voting us out, not even allowing us the opportunity to have democracy in our country. Democracy needs borders. That's a fact. Democracy needs borders. What else does democracy need? Democracy needs a free press. Right now, through the National Union of Journalism, which governs journalists in the BBC, Mr. Nolan on BBC Radio Ulster, Mr. Crawley is in the National Union of Journalism. And yet there's guidelines in place for those people where they're not allowed to talk about the immigration. Ask yourself, why is that? And if the press aren't allowed to be inquisitive, to do investigative journalism, if they aren't allowed to do that, if they aren't allowed to talk about certain subjects, do we really have democracy in our country? You see, this is what your politicians are presiding over. They're presiding over the same thing in Northern Ireland as they are in Southern Ireland, the same thing that they are in England, Scotland, and Wales. You know, people are being driven apart. People are being forced to be at loggerheads with each other whenever, and we're coming back to this point again, whenever that there are solutions which can be equitable arrangement which suits the needs of people and not the wants of extremists or ideologues in the media, ideologues in the establishment who are after their own political ideology. They're looking to force their own political ideology into place, let's just say. So I really wanted to get into a lot of things which has been forced down our road. I really wanted to make this a stream, not about unionists, but about everybody, because everybody is being played by these politicians who've adopted, they've adopted a way in which that they have no remit to push to ordinary citizens. So let's again look at this. You see, who governs trade law and dictates trading arrangements in Northern Ireland? Who governs trade law and dictates trading arrangements in the Republic of Ireland? Why do you think that people wanted to leave the EU? Why do you think that people wanted away from this globalist push that has been pushed into place? Well, people wanted to take back control of their countries. People wanted to secure their borders. People wanted to have their nationality, their history, their heritage and their culture respected yet again, like it was in the past. People are fed up to the back teeth with globalization causing divisions in our countries and driving people to the point whereby what happened in Northern Ireland last week? Well, someone thought it was the right thing to do to lift a gun and to try to shoot a policeman last week. And we've seen all of that in the past, and we literally do not want to go back to that ever again. Are we going to let our politicians push us somewhere that we don't want to go? They are estimating what it is that we put them into place to do. I, for one, as a unionist living in Northern Ireland, as a British unionist living in Northern Ireland, with the birthright to be British and to be part of the United Kingdom, I, for one, am not going to let my politicians force me into the position whereby that I am a second-class citizen in my own land. And I hope that you're like me. I hope that you will join with us to tell the DUP you do not have the right to do any deal that the people of Northern Ireland, the electorate that put you into place, you do not have the right to agree to anything to the detriment of British Unionists here in Northern Ireland. You have one mandate, and your mandate is this. Jeffrey Donaldson on a stage in Ballymoney, County Antrim, well, he suggested that the democratic right of the Unionist people of Northern Ireland, it should be respected, and he meant that we should have the same Brexit as people in England, Scotland, and in Wales. And he says that the protocol needs to go. So anything beyond that isn't within the DUP's mandate to deliver. I just want to go over a couple of more videos before that I close. And again, I quote, and I really want to drive this home. There is one simple test for, well, there's really two, but let's just deal with the one on our screen right now, is that who governs trade law and dictates trading arrangements in Northern Ireland? Who governs trade law and dictates trading arrangements in Northern Ireland? And if it's the EU, well, this deal, this Windsor framework, it isn't any use for unionists in Northern Ireland. I just want to remind people of a little video clip from the past here at Restore. Now, let me play this and I'll come back and we'll talk some more.
Tunnel in terms of the trading, what we propose is this. Those who wish to trade into the European Union through the Republic of Ireland entry point would be required as a matter of law to opt in to a scheme whereby they would have to comply with full EU requirements in order to do that, full customs declarations, and you opt into that tunnel. And then you comply with that, and of course the two lanes proposal that the government have is it's back to front, because you have to opt in via a trusted trader scheme to trade in your own country.
Now, you see, there are equitable solutions, there are equitable arrangements that can be put in place. The British government know about them, the EU know about them, the DUP knows about them, the Sinn Féiners know about them. And, well, what you see being proposed here, and Jimmy Bryson's talking about it, is picture in your mind's eye a tunnel. Picture in your mind's eye the United Kingdom being one United Kingdom. No separation, no Irish Sea border, no EU-inspired customs or regulatory border within the United Kingdom. And the EU could accept this today, tomorrow, next week. They could accept this, and this would solve the entire Brexit shenanigans, let's just say. So picture in your mind's eye a tunnel. Picture in your mind's eye that anyone that wants to trade with the EU, Well, what they do is that they can insert their goods into this imaginary tunnel from anywhere in the United Kingdom. They become trusted traders within the EU. They make their declarations. They show that their goods meet with the standards of the EU single market, and they send their goods to the EU. This is what happens all around the world. This isn't rocket science. This is what happens. So they meet with the requirements of the standards of the EU. They meet with the requirements of the EU single market. They fill in the paperwork and they send their goods to the EU. They trade with the EU effectively. You know, there's nothing complicated about this. And in turn, if that solution was put in place, what that actually does is that allows for free flow of goods right around the United Kingdom. That removes the Irish Sea border. That removes the EU-inspired customs and regulatory checks at Larne, at Belfast, and on Warrenpoint. That returns the Act of the Union to being reinstated again. That rectifies everything. That reinstates the premise of in Article 1 of the Northern Ireland Act 1998, that it reinstates the premise of the principle of consent, in where that there's no constitutional change without the say-so of the people of Northern Ireland. You see, here's what happened in 1998, whenever that agreement was actually signed. Well, you see, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to ask people to listen to this very, very clearly, because this is fact. The Irish government, they give up their right. They give up their right to really have any say in terms of the constitutional position of Northern Ireland. They removed their Article 2 and 3. They removed their illegal claim. They obligated themselves to not having a say over the constitutional position of Northern Ireland. They give that to the people in a referendum in Northern Ireland and in Southern Ireland to run side by side. If the people of Northern Ireland were someday to vote for to be in a United Ireland or a new Ireland, well, then there would be also a vote put to the people in the Republic of Ireland. And that was the obligation of the Irish government. But are they keeping up with their obligation? Absolutely not. What was the obligation of the British government in 1998? They took away their right to cause constitutional change by signing up to the Belfast Agreement, by signing this internationally recognised and respected agreement, which is sacrosanct, they say, but none of it goes against British Unionists. So the British government removed their right to cause constitutional change in Northern Ireland without a referendum being put to the people. But yet we learn through taking them to court that, well, the British government are sovereign. They can change anything at any time when it suits them. So effectively what they've done is they've trashed the Belfast Agreement. So all of this, there's a huge problem which is storing up for the future. This deal isn't the be-all and the end-all. What about the Belfast Agreement? What about the fact that the safeguards that unionism was provided for within that Belfast Agreement, the principle of consent, that's trashed, that's away, the Act of Union's away, and they're expecting us to accept a deal where the EU governs the trade and dictates the trading arrangements in Northern Ireland. They couldn't make this up. They say all of this with a straight face. They try to push this upon us. This is why that we have to fight against this. This is why that our politicians need to get up off their knees and fight against this, because it's not right. It is unfair. It is wrong. It is unlawful. It's downright, it's gangsterism. That's what it is. So there was a deal. There was a solution, a tunnel in where the EU goods could be. We could satisfy the needs of the EU single market for goods by creating this tunnel and sending the goods down this tunnel, and the declarations being made from anywhere in the United Kingdom, freeing up trade within the United Kingdom, reinstating the acts of the Union and also the principle of consent contained within the Belfast Agreement. Job done, everything's satisfied. But no, that's too simple for them. So you see, there's people say that there's no use arguing unless that you have a solution or you have solutions. Well, there's one solution. There's a solution there for you. Then there's another solution. And let me explain. So I'm going to take that down. I just really wanted to play that because that was something that myself, Ben Habib and Jamie Bryson had talked about a lot of weeks ago. It was put to the British government and they have declined it. And one wonders why, that they don't want an equitable arrangement. They don't want an equitable solution. They do not want this entire Brexit mess to be sorted out in one foul swoop. Now, I asked your question. Ask the question. Why do they not want this to be sorted out? Why? Why do they not want this sorted out to everybody's satisfaction? Are they trying to hive us off? Are they trying to break up the United Kingdom? Are they trying to create the circumstances in where the globalization could occur? Well, we see that they won't stop the dinghies coming across into Kent and into Lower England. We see that they're overburdening their own services in England, Scotland and Wales. We see that Ireland is doing the same with their uncontrollable, unquantifiable, unidentifiable immigration coming into Ireland. We see that citizens are rising up. We see that people aren't happy because of the overburdening of the services. They can't look after their own people. In 2020, early 2020, there were 10,000 homeless people in Ireland. There were full families as homeless people, and yet those homeless people are not being looked after. But yet there's plenty of room at the inn for the newcomers, for those that would do away with their paperwork, their passports, the unidentifiable people coming into this country. And then it turns out when we look at what's happening in England, and it's been proved time and time and time again, that criminals are coming here, the worst criminals in the world. We're importing the worst of the third world into our countries. And our countries are fast becoming third world. And that's a fact. If for yourself you don't want to sort this out, what about your children? What about your children and your children's children? And I'm talking to, say, Jeffrey Donaldson here. I'm talking to Gavin Robinson, and we're going to come on to him in a minute. But we're talking to people that are in political leadership who are minded to do a dirty deal which won't suit anyone in this country. We're talking to Rishi Sunak here. You may have the money, Rishi, to protect yourself against what it is that you're causing in this country. You're turning the United Kingdom into the third world. Leo Varadkar, Simon Coveney, Micheál Martin, you are turning Ireland into the third world. You are leaving citizens in the respective countries in vulnerable positions. You are overburdening the services, the welfare state, the housing. You're causing the cost of housing to go up. You know, you're overburdening the tax take. It doesn't make sense what you're doing. You are destroying your countries. But of course, you will be okay because you are being rewarded for selling out, for turning your countries into hellholes, for causing the circumstances whereby the citizens are wanting to be at each other's throats in Northern Ireland. Well, they've killed people in the past because of constitutional issues for ownership of the land. Who wants to be part of the United Kingdom? Who wants to be part of the Republic of Ireland? Why? Why are we not trying to cause the circumstances whereby that there is an equitable arrangement, something that suits everybody, not enhancing one at the expense of another? So you see, we came to this screen tonight to talk about solutions as well as criticisms. So one solution is a tunnel, EU single market satisfied. Then there's another solution. There's a solution in where that every single person in Northern Ireland could actually be wealthy. We could create wealth, we could create growth, we could create jobs, we could bring in investment through this other solution. if you really wanted to sort out the problem, well, wouldn't you consider the perfect solution for Northern Ireland? Northern Ireland, people talk about it. The Americans talk about it. They say, well, we've been through all of this conflict. We're a special case. We're a special place. We deserve a break. The people of Northern Ireland need to have the circumstances in where that reconciliation can occur at some future point. But yet the powers that be won't permit the circumstances for this to happen. So what is the other solution I speak of? There's this thing called a free port. Ben Habib would have talked about a free port. You know, Singapore upon Thames, he said, whenever that we left, we voted in big numbers to, bear with me for 2 seconds. I have to turn something off there. I didn't mean that to happen. So Ben Habib would have talked about a free port. Ben Habib would have talked about a Singapore upon Thames. You know, Ben is a businessman. He sees things in a business light. He would have said that after we left the EU, well, if we really want to know what to do, we should do what the EU fears. They don't want a country, a United Kingdom with a unique selling point. They don't want the circumstance whereby that we could be nimble, where that we could make our own trade deals, where that we could attract inward investment, we could set our own tax rates. You know, we could lower our corporation tax to bring in investment, to create jobs, to create wealth, to prosper every single person in this country. You know, there is a thing called a free port. A free port. Northern Ireland is a special case. Northern Ireland has been through years of conflict. And what is a free port? Let me explain in a nutshell. A free port is a designation that a particular place can get. And well, what if that tax was zero here in Northern Ireland? Well, wouldn't that save the Exchequer a lot of money in London? If that we attracted investment, we brought in huge big companies wanting to set up here, creating jobs, creating wealth, creating the circumstances whereby that people take pride in this place. You know, if you create the circumstances whereby people have money and people can prosper, you know, politics soon becomes a thing of the past. People don't really want to know. People want to get on with their lives, provide for their families, provide for their children. And the British government actually have the ability to designate this place a free port so that we can get out and about around the world. You know, we can attract those from America that say, well, they say this, but is their actions the same as their words? They say that they want Northern Ireland to be at one. They want reconciliation to occur here. But do they really? Do they really? The EU say that they have our best interest at heart. They pump in a lot of peace money. The Irish government say that they've got our best interest at heart. But do they really? Because they pump in a lot of peace money. But you see, all of that money comes with a price, comes with a price tag. It comes that we don't get £1 of their money unless that they're getting something back for it. Perhaps it might be the advancement of their own ideological driven necessities, requirements. Perhaps that's what they're after when they pump money in here. But if they really wanted to help Northern Ireland, what they would do is that they would designate Northern Ireland a free port. They would allow their businesses to come here, to set up here, to create the jobs for the people that are here, to prosper the people that are here. And well, I think if that was done, Northern Ireland would continue and continue on from that day to this. Well, I believe that we wouldn't look back from that. So there's another solution, is that the British government could designate this place a free port, that the British government and the Irish government could actually benefit from that free port in where that they could send their companies here to trade with the rest of the world. with very, very low taxes. I mean, that's what happens in the south at the minute. But now all that's about to change in the south whenever the EU tax harmonisation powers come into force. You see, the EU has one sole aim and sole goal. And what they want is that they don't want anybody to be different. They want to erase everyone's nationality. They want to govern everyone. They want to use a thing called universality, like one shoe fits all, one rule fits all, one law governs all, one trade policy governs all. If only the world worked like that, because individuals and individual countries are actually different. There is a way in which that we can put things back to, I'm going to say, the circumstances whereby that an equitable arrangement could be caused here in Northern Ireland. So I say to Rishi, when you were selling what you were selling yesterday, you are missing some very key components. And the components are this. You see, if you haven't got the tools, if you're not providing the tools in order to do the job, if you can't put your money where your mouth is, if you can't back up the claims that you were making in this so-called Windsor framework, if you can't do that, then everything that has come out of your mouth yesterday, and it has been seen by everybody is looking at you, Rishi, and you're a very rich man. Have you so much lost the plot that you think that you could pull the wool over ordinary people's eyes? Is that what you think? I'm quite aware that, say, the Northern Ireland office would watch what it is that we do. Because make no mistake, we have an effect on, and we've seen it several times, where what we have done is that we've managed to turn the trajectory of leaderships, of unionists, of people who are minded to do certain things, and we have managed time and time and time again to manipulate the circumstances in where that they don't do the wrong thing. Why do they do that? Well, that's because that they're exposed for doing the wrong thing, and then they go, well, we don't want our electorate to know that, or our electorate won't vote for us. So I've no doubt that we are being watched. Look at Facebook, for example. On Facebook, Restore UK has over 10,000 people, 10,500 thereabouts, people on Facebook. We had a very, very healthy platform there, and they shut us down for nothing. They restrict us from getting out to people, and they tell us that you go against our community standards. For what? For exposing that IRA terrorists would have had a policy whereby that they wanted to wipe out a whole generation of people in Tullyhummon. So you expose that, and that goes against Facebook's standards. And yet they allow for politics, and that's politics pointing out that for political reasons terrorism occurred, and the terrorism was to expand on the strategy that the IRA had, the Armalite in the ballot box. So you show that, and Facebook says you go against our community standards. I can remember back a few years ago that posts that we were making on Facebook were reaching 100,000 people. The biggest post that we ever done on Facebook was 3.2 million people. And gradually, slowly but surely, it was whittled down and down and down and down and down. And even in the last few years, go and look at our videos. You will see that, 7,000 people watching them, 6,000, 5,000, 4,000, 3,000, 2,000, 1,000, 150 people. You see, algorithms were set against us because that we were speaking sense, that we were speaking out against corruption, that we were showing that our leaders are continuously doing the wrong thing. And that's what happens whenever they often say, when you're right and the government is wrong, it's a very dangerous place and position to be in. So we're now under the circumstances whereby the public platform, the public square is social media, governed, overseen by ideologues who maybe don't like what we are saying because they're for globalization, and we are pointing out the flaws in globalization. We are pointing out that globalization doesn't suit society. Globalization doesn't suit indigenous folk. Globalization won't permit you to hold on to your nationality. Globalization wants to destroy anything and everything that you've ever believed in. And whenever you point that out, well, you become less popular on social media. Those are the things that we need to collectively stand together to say, not in our name. Everyone needs a voice. You need to be able to talk about corruption. Our media should not be curtailed and corrupted. We need a strong media to hold corrupt politicians to account. Why do you think that there's been a rise in citizens journalism, people like us, right around the Western world? It's because the mainstream media are being curtailed from doing their job. People, I think that we've said enough. You know, we're going to come to a couple of more sayings before that we close. At the top of our screen here, everyone wants to sell what's already been sold. Everyone wants to tell what's already been told. Now, those are the words of a song, and they call that song, All That Glitters Ain't Gold. And what you see in this Windsor framework, well, from the way that I'm looking at it, from how that we understand it, what you're seeing in that Windsor framework, well, it most definitely isn't gold. Who governs trade law and dictates trading arrangements in Northern Ireland? That's a very serious question. And if the answer is this, if it's the EU, that's something that every single British Unionist should stand against and should demand that we're returned to being part of the United Kingdom, that the border is removed, the customs and regulatory border in the green channels, the red channels with the digital data, that's removed. We didn't give our consent for this. No one voted for this. We voted to leave the EU. We can't be left behind. It is undemocratic. It is unlawful. It's unacceptable. And any British Unionist politician in Northern Ireland that wants to tell me that it is acceptable, well, I think that what you're doing is that you're making yourself the enemy of the people. So what we're going to do, people, is that we're going to play ourselves out. We're going to play ourselves out with, I guess, something that is maybe puts us on a happier note. Rather than all of that doom and gloom. So the Windsor document, it's a spin, it's a swindle, it's a fudge, it's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Well, we've seen how that Rishi was actually selling it. It is absolute bunkers for any British Unionist to accept that. One key test: who governs trade law? Who dictates trading arrangements in Northern Ireland? And if the answer is the EU, well, we need to go back to the drawing board, because the answer can't be the EU. This is colonisation. And colonisation in 2023, well, it simply isn't acceptable. People, thanks very much for listening. Share this far and wide. We'll cut some small clips out of this here, and we'll speak to you all very soon. Thank you.
I looked outside. What did I see? A little bird. He looked at me. I lured him close. With a piece of bread. And then I smashed. His little head. The moral of the story is. You want some head. You need some bread. Right turn. Huh.
looked outside. What did I see? What did I see? A little bird. A little bird. He looked at me. He looked at me. I lured him close. I lured him close. With a piece of bread. With a piece of bread. And then I smashed. And then I smashed his little head. His little